Emma's Universe podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe podcast.
Hello and welcome to Emma's podcast. In today's podcast, we are going to be talking about I have no idea. How about that? It's just beautiful outside. We just got the full moon here, and again, it's recorded in October, so. But it has been a good weather here. The mice are overly excited. I have one crazy one mice who's on the path of war in a closet, in a pantry, not a closet, but a pantry, because it's trying to get access to the food and can't. So it's having a temper tantrum and actually throw things to the ground, which is funny. It's like I can imagine a Mickey Mouse having a temper tantrum. So that's the excitement here, and the dogs are doing good. So we are good. I talked about lately about leadership a lot and our own responsibilities, because based on people's behavior, I even had, and I don't know why I went back to memory land for a minute here, on behavioral from neighbors as well, from being, nice to each other to be adversary on some ridiculous things, especially HOA. So if you don't know at home, what is it? HOA? It's a home OA association. That's the homeowner association. And to be honest with you, I would have known many, many years ago what was going on there. I would have never bought a place there because, oh my God. Your fee increase every year. You have to follow all of the rules and policies. It is one of the worst things when you got the Karens in the world there on the boards, and how many you can see on TikTok of those popping left and right. But you got the people who are disgruntled when they got voted out of the board. They foster resentment, and they don't have a life except thinking they're a little general in that entire thing. When you're part of a board, you're here to assist everybody in your community, which most of the time it's not the case. And I had to go back in my head for some unknown reason this morning earlier into some of the behavior after I was done with the term. I didn't want it. So the story is for 2 decades I avoided the board, and the issue we had with Black Lives Matters and the situation that was happening with the George Floyd situation there in Minneapolis, the board did not respond very well to the situation at all. They went into a panic mode thinking there will be a riot directly into this small community who had nothing to do with the George Floyd, and we don't have a Louis Vuitton store, and they're in the middle of it. So it's like, okay, you're delusional. Then we got some individuals who were being fed propaganda and started to write some pretty horrifying hate speech towards white people. And it was just a mayhem for several months. But unfortunately, the board did not respond very well. They secluded themselves. They tried to force things to the community. It was just horrible. So the election were delayed because you're on top of that situation. You had COVID. So it was a hootenanny, or how can we say that? The perfect storm. And the election is ended being in April, May. Yes, it's April. We're pushed to August, actually. So at the last minute, I had people approaching me and asking me if I wanted to run for the board. And I'm like, sure, not a problem. However, when I went and talked to the community, because that's what I did, I went door to door, spoke to the most homeowner that I could, let them know what was my plan to do, which was one, taking care of the cleaning crew. They were very nice couple, very nice gentleman and a lady. However, they couldn't do the work. So they were paying, they were paying them to basically, they were not cleaning it up. They were not cleaning up any entries. It was just terrible, and they should part it from them, but they did not. So that was one thing. It was there were other things going on that should have been taken care of than I saw, especially when you're looking at entryways and in the stoop. Some of them were basically ignored, which was pretty bad. The model building had a pathway between two buildings, which created in the wintertime an ice skating ring because people were not using that path, but it was bringing more ice due to non-maintenance of the ground in those areas. So there were a lot of things, and as I said, one of my goal was, and I said to everybody, then I would be taking the people that needed to get off the board, because some of them were over there for a decade and they needed to go. You know, when you do a tour, do one or two maximum should be what should have been, but that's not the case. So those people from a clique. I remember when I went to the pool parking lot to do the voting, I had no idea. I knew about the calculations because I calculated how many people would get my vote. I was estimating the person that was on the board, but the entire situation was, it was a who's who and who I like club, which it should not be. It should be a neutral position. At the end of the day, I got voted in, to the shock of the board, because they couldn't believe it. They thought it was a conspiracy and blah blah blah, because I wasn't anointed by those guys. So there were a lot of hatred, humiliation for 8 months. They put me in the secretary position, which was just fine by me. But it was, every time I opened my mouth, one of them hated me so much. I think she could have had guns on or knives, she would have staked me like there were no tomorrow. This is how bad that person hated me. Still, I think. And I basically organized the crew for the following year. There were 2 board members, and I got them out. There was 1 or 2, because I did it it took me, 2 board members. And I flipped the board, became president, and the right people got voted in. Now, the hatred for those people out were unbelievable. They were so full of hate to the point they tried to get me out, but they could not, and tried to block everything. It was just a mayhem. Now, fast forward to the election. I was done. I didn't want it to run, but somebody said, well, you should run. I'm like, I don't want to run. I'm done. But I did it anywho, except I did not want and walk around. I had no interest on doing this. And I just, when the election came, I knew I didn't win. I could care less, actually. I walked away with a big smile on my face, let them have it. And I heard negative comment. And pretty harsh too as well. And lies were being told, which is interesting. So for me, I'm not going to tell any lies, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. But that's fine. However, I was prepared because I knew one of the individuals who came on that board actually had a tendency to send anonymous letters. And I'm serious. It's like, when you go, people are nuts. This is the kind of people you deal with. But she did even better than that, because the police department had, and that's a bad thing actually, because they should do better than that, had a website where you can send anonymously any inquiries. And she used it. I know it was her. And I knew this would happen actually. So I knew it. My dogs are ESA, which is emotional support animals. And the rules on the city rules about how many dogs you got, how many cats you got, animals, it's the ESA superseded so they cannot do anything. Not even 12 hours after this person went on the board, somebody downstairs, and they should have never done that. That was stupid from her. But she opened the door, so they went and knocked at my door. And I got a very nice gentleman who was doing an animal welfare check because they received an anonymous complaint about my animals. And he asked me how many dogs I have, and I said, I have 3. And he started to talk to me and said, well, we only authorize 2. And I said, yeah, but I'm going to stop you right there. My dogs are ESA, and that supersedes your stuff. So he wanted to see the proof of the letter. I showed him the proof of the letter. I even had to file with the police department my ESA letters. This did not stop there because there were so much 2 individuals spewing venom. One in particular was on the board. And for months at a time, that individual tried to obtain that ESA letter. Now, for people who don't know what an ESA letter, it's a letter right for medical purpose, actually. Now, those are protected by HIPAA. So the board cannot see it. The management company will file it, and that's it. And they are aware of. She tried in many ways to push. I believe the lawyers threatened her if she was not stopping to ask, because she tried to put her hands on that letters, because one individual she was in cahoots with, who thinks she knew everything, was pushing to have that. Those are medical records. So you cannot have it. So that was another thing. The other thing too is that was my VP became the president of the board and approached me. Allegedly, there was a dog running loose into the entryway, which was false, and they got the unit wrong, which I knew who he was. I knew who he was since the beginning. And they did the same thing when they were saying they were loose on the lawn, which the only time they were not rolling loose, they were still on the lead, but I was releasing the lead when I was close to the garage, which would not impede anyone. But this is to show you how much hatred people can do towards others. So HOA, I'm telling the story of the HOA because I think this is one of the worst things you can ever have, is the hatred of people who've got nothing else better to do. Because they got booted out of a board, they need to go because the people, as homeowner, there should be a rule into the declaration actually saying that, and that's one thing we are looking at. It's to have 2 terms. When you do your 2 terms, you're done. You don't need to be sitting in there like King Tut and policing everyone. Unfortunately, for some of those individuals, they had nothing else better to do. So the fire was a blessing actually, because I was being tired for the attempt of being targeted for nothing, because I was retaliation, because I was on the board, because I made the change for the cleaning crew, which we had a brand new cleaning crew, and we vetted different people. We asked the community, do you know anyone? And by way of perfect synchronicity, it happened that somebody that was on the board at that time, very nice, her son knew somebody that was doing commercial one, and those guys doing such a good job. Very good couple, very nice couple, who would come on Saturdays, and actually you could see they cleaned it up. Seriously, those guys spent maybe a half an hour in each building in entryway, but you could see they cleaned it up compared to the other one who was starting the vacuum and had people that I did not know who they were telling me, oh, I see it for 20 minutes. They'd start the vacuum, walked away, have a cigarette, come back in. Imagine the disaster. And those was happening for years. So imagine you're losing $12,000, $13,000 a year. You pay somebody who do nothing. That happens. So when you're looking at the hatred of people and the HOA, it's so irritating. Seriously. People who would come and try to run everything where, in fact, it's a community. So you need to be open to everybody. But where, like I did, I cleaned up the board, it did not suit everybody at all. And resentment went high. So the revenge was because I wasn't the president anymore, or part of the board anymore. They went after me. But the worst part, it wasn't even directly after me. They went after my pops, which was the most ridiculous things ever. However, they were not smart enough because I already anticipated those attacks. At the end of the day, they win nothing except being the cop's nose. So, you file every year, blah, 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 as a proof. So they cannot do anything. So every time you try an attempt to call or whatever, it's like, no, too bad, Jack. No. The night of I remember that officer, the night of the fire, he was overnight. He was working overnight. And he recognized me, and he's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, don't worry about it. I'm like, I lost everything. So what do you want me to say? Very nice kid. Yes, I'm going to call him a kid because I could be his mom, actually. But very nice kid, very nice, very polite, very sweet. So it's been very interesting to see the hatred in people and the revenge because, oh my God, I got to remove of this, and this is the end of the world, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, boards are there to have people in from any walk of life, any way they see things. It should not be the boys' club. I would have known this when I was looking for a place. I would have never purchased it over there. I would have done something else because I like my peace and quiet. I like my independence. I don't need to know if I cannot put because the rules were strict. You cannot do this, you cannot do that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? I just want my own freedom. And I don't need the drama of the board because it end up in some cases when the situation where we have with the Black Lives Matters and the George Floyd situation happened, how much the community was divided compared to the the board. And the board, which is 5 members, they all felt attacked. And it's like you cannot shovel something down the throat of people without allowing them to express themselves, once, because we have the right to be heard, and 2, it's not one-sided. It's a gray area. That situation was a gray area. This gentleman wasn't a saint, and it was utilized in a way that created riots. So imagine you're half an hour from downtown. Seriously. Middle of nowhere, quote-unquote, neighbors. There is no Louis Vuitton, nothing that could be ransacked. And they were all afraid. And I'm like, you know what? If you bring your own fears in there, you're not helping your community. Fears doesn't do anything good. Revenge doesn't do anything good. You should know when your time is up. A lot of people don't realize that when you're in a relationship and the relationship goes down the drain, or you're in a position in a job where the position is ending, you need to move on, or you're in the board and you're hanging on to dear life. I laughed. I laughed. That's what I did. And I walked away. I was smiling. I'm like, thank God, I'm done now. I'm like, I wanted just to do one term, actually. I was there to clean up the board, like I said I would. Do contracts. 2 contracts we did, actually. One was, and that's what I kind of scared some of the board members, because we had a lawn company. I forgot about this one, who did not have for several years. So they would pop whenever they feel like it. That was a problem. The guy had several businesses. So that's the problem. I will go back to that situation afterwards. And they were cleaning up, do some of the stuff, but they were not doing it very well. Okay? And we got enough of it. Not only this, but the following year, they decided to do a 8% increase. Now, what I installed was communication with everybody, which means some of the board members, prior to make some changes or hacked everything, they never justify why. And to me, a board has to be transparent. So I issued, and it was the first time they did it, issued memo at the year-end explaining what's going on, with whom, how, and why not. And I passed it on. That was Charlie, has been the secretary for treasurer forever, who, because he knew a little bit more in depth compared to me on some of the stuff, because I wasn't purview of everything for years. I ignored it for years, but was there and updated it, and we sent a memo. So people had the communication and understood what was the situation. So that loan company decided to do an 8% increase. Then with the situation that happened and the gas price, in the middle of the year, they decided to do what I call it a blackmail. They wanted to impose, and we signed the contract, they wanted to impose a 25% hike, something like that. And I said, no, we're not. And they tried. And I said, absolutely not. So what we did is said, it's time to let them go. And one of the person said, well, but this is a business owner and he's going to hold in grudge. I said, one, everybody were quote unquote shitting in their pants when I made the decision. I said, I'm not going to be blackmailed by anyone. We are not. And I said, you know what? We're not signing up. We're not paying this. This is enough. So we were able to make the change to have another company that was a little less expensive than the other one wanted to do it, actually, with a 25% increase. But also, they would do a better job, which they have done. Actually, you could see the huge difference as well. So those were the biggest two things, and the concretes, the skirts and everything else, the stoop, because some people were ignored. And we picked good company that were able to do that. But it was very frustrating at the end of the day when you're trying to do things like that. And my mission was, I need to accomplish this, and I am done, which I did. When I got voted out, which was fine by me, because as I said, I was laughing. I'm like, thank God I can finally get my life back here. This is where the hatred came and the revenge of two individuals. It wasn't even an entire community. It was two individuals, one in particular, because I voted her out and she hated my guts because I wasn't pre-approved by everybody. And she thought I took or I stole the seat of one guy because she never liked women's. She liked only one person that was on the board, but every other woman's she would go after like a pit bull. Very, very nasty person. But when it comes down to the male, oh yes, they were a god. So I took his place. She insulted me for 8 months, and I kicked her into the curb when they come out because we needed fresh blood. Being part of the board, you have to serve your community. It's not about you. It's not about what you like. It's about what is best for the community. I took down some of those policies, one of them especially for animals, because they wanted to try to impose only small dogs that have been there for 20 years or 1985 when I was created. The problem was that per the policy of the city of Plymouth, they changed it to now, no, they were not banning any dogs. It's a dog who bites, and they were changing the how many dogs will be there, quote unquote. 2 dogs. You could have 4 animals, 2 dogs, 2 cats, 3 cats, 1 dog, whatever you wanted. So people could sue the association for that. But somehow over the rainbow, the people made it, and I sued. The false narrative was, well, this was for my 3 dogs, which my dogs are ESA, which had nothing to do with it. I also put it into that because this was an ESA, were not listed, neither service animals. And we even added the website for the law so people could back off, which some of them did not, because they still went after my poor pups who did nothing, my babies. But I pissed off people when I got Daddy and Mac because nobody had 2 dogs. And that was frowned upon. So they were already being targeted prior to that, which I had to fight back with the board, and the board let it go because I got all of the proof who they were. So that was one thing. And this happened. And I was just amazed to see how much hatred people can harbor. And I'm like, at the end of the day, you have to learn to let go of this, because that poison's killing you faster, age you faster, bring you only crap around it. What's the point? Seriously. So that was my story for today about that infamous board of directors. And to be honest with you, 3 years was plenty for me because, again, I came with an agenda. At the end, I walked my head up high, straight, and I was more than happy because I accomplished everything that needed to be done. After that, it wasn't my monkey, it wasn't my circus. So I will talk to you later. Bye now.
Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe Podcast.
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Emma's Universe Podcast. Universe Podcast.
Stargazer.